Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of Medgar Evers College. It is sincerely an honor and a privilege to be here, and I thank Dean Rowe and Professor Floyd for the invitation and the opportunity, frankly, to spend a few minutes sharing with you what I like to call Carla's pearls, as I like to say, my hard-earned and hard-learned pearls after being a woman on Wall Street for 28 years. Yeah, that's an amen there. I dare say that I have learned a few things about not only surviving, but more importantly, thriving in the seat that you sit in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. And frankly, that's what the pearls are all about. As you've heard, I am an author. I have had the privilege of writing 2 books. The first book, Expect to Win, I wrote in 2009 because I was fairly confident that after over 20 years on the street, that I had learned a few things that would help anybody to maximize their success in the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. Now, I wish I had had this book when I started my career right out of Harvard Business School at 24 years old on Wall Street. I wish I had had these pearls, but I will tell you that even after I'm still using these pearls, and I am using them aggressively, so they work. I don't care what industry you're interested in going in. I don't care whether you are a man or a woman, and I don't care where you are in your career. I will guarantee you that these pearls will help you to maximize your success. I wrote Strategize to Win, frankly, because I traveled all over the world talking about the pearls. And over, I kept running into 2 very distinct groups of people. The first were the millennials and the Xers, who were asking me things like, how can I figure out what I really want to do? I'm interested in 5 or 6 different things. How do I know which career I should choose? And oh, by the way, how long should I stay on the first job? Or I took a job just to get a job in 2008, tough economic environment, I had a lot of school debt, and I just took this job, and now I've been doing it for 6 or 7 years, and I hate it. How do I get out? How do I reposition myself? Do I need to go back to grad school? And on this end of the food chain, I kept running into boomers, people who were saying things like, I was displaced during the financial services crisis. I've been out of a job now for 2 or 3 years. How do I tell or sell my story into the next great opportunity? Or, I've been a lawyer for 20 years. I don't want to do this anymore. How do I leverage those skills into a great job in financial services or brand management? And I realized that I had other content that might be useful in the marketplace, which is why I wrote Strategize to Win. Now, the real motivation around Expect to Win, frankly, was when I sat in your seat as a student and I was interviewing for jobs, almost every company that I talked to said, oh, you just got to be really smart, work really hard. It's a meritocracy. You'll be able to go wherever you want to go. But once I started my career, it didn't quite work out that way. You see, meritocracy means all you need to do is to be really smart and work really hard. But that does not fulfill your success equation. You see, I thought I was pretty smart. Magna cum laude, Harvard undergrad, 2nd year honors, Harvard Business School, pretty smart, huh? You think? I'm from the South, so I knew there were very few of those boys in the Northeast that could outwork me. Yet that combination did not equal maximizing my success. So I had to ask myself what's missing. Being the anal person that I am, I went to the dictionary and I looked up the word meritocracy. And I don't care whose dictionary you go to, if you look up the word meritocracy, you will see the word objective somewhere in that definition. Yet, in all of our evaluative equations, there is a human element. And if there is a human element, by definition, it is subjective. It cannot be 100% meritocratic. So the question is, what are some of those other things that inform that success equation? And that's really what the pearls are all about. So today, given the time that we have, I'm going to give you 5 pearls from both books. So 5 total. I have 10 pearls in Expect to Win, and well, 11 really with my most precious pearl, and 10 in Strategize to Win. But today I'm going to give you 5, a combination of those from Expect to Win and Strategize to Win, so that we can maximize our time in the Q&A. And when we get to Q&A, You can ask me anything that's on your mind because I am here at your pleasure. So there's really nothing that's off limits. Whatever you have questions about, I'm prepared to answer those questions. Now, let's get started. The first pearl, it is the most important thing that I learned after over 2.5 decades on the street. So if you read Expect to Win, do not be fooled because it is chapter 4, because it is one of the most important things, or the most important thing that I learned, and that is perception is the co-pilot to reality. How people perceive you will directly impact how they deal with you. Yes, the reality of how smart you are has something to do with your success equation. The reality of how hard you work has something to do with your success equation. But a very big component of your success equation in any environment is the perception that the marketplace has about you. What lens are they looking through when they are looking at you? And if you want to maximize your success in the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in, you must understand the adjectives that are associated with success for the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. If you don't understand the adjectives that are associated with success, oh, you can work really hard, but you won't maximize your success in that seat because you're working in a way that is inconsistent with the way they are thinking about success. Take, for example, if you would like to manage a large group of people, but you are not perceived as being motivational, inspirational, or organized, it doesn't matter that you can do it. It doesn't even matter that you did do it. You won't get the opportunity to do that if you are not perceived as such. If you would like to manage a large P&L, but you are not perceived as being analytical, quantitative, or strategic, doesn't matter that you can, doesn't even matter that you did. You won't get the opportunity to do that if you are not perceived as such. Now, people say to me all the time, but wait a minute, Carla, I am who I am. I can't make anybody think about me in a certain way. If you remember nothing else about our time together this afternoon, remember that you can train people to think about you in the way that you want them to think about you. And how do you do that? You pick 3 adjectives that you would like people to use to describe you when you are not in the room. And why do I say when you're not in the room? It's because all of the important decisions about your career will be made when you are not in the room. Compensation decisions will be made when you are not in the room. Promotion decisions will be made when you are not in the room. And new assignments will be given out when you are not in the room. So how do you want people to describe you when you're not in the room? Pick 3 adjectives that are absolutely consistent with who you really are, because I'm a big fan of the authenticity point. Nobody can be you the way that you can be you. It is your distinct competitive advantage. So pick 3 adjectives that are absolutely consistent with who you really are. However, pick 3 adjectives that are also valued in that organization. And if you don't know what's valued in that organization, you can go to the organization's website. There isn't an organization today that doesn't describe itself or its values on the website. And if they don't, think about what they told you when they hired you. Oh, Thelma, we hired you for the following 2 reasons. Oh, Denise, you beat out these 3 candidates for these 4 reasons. They told you then what they valued about you. So the trick is to continue to improve upon that which they value. The 3 adjectives that are absolutely consistent with who you really are, the 3 adjectives that are valued in your organization, where they intersect is how you must behave consistently if you want to train people to think about you in a certain way. It is simply consistent behavior around those 3 adjectives. And my big aha happened 5 to 6 years into my career. And I told this story hundreds of times, but every time I have the privilege and the honor of speaking in front of a group of people, I tell this story because it was indeed my aha moment. 5 to 6 years into my career, I had a very senior managing director say to me, you know, you're smart, you work hard, but I don't think you're tough enough. for this business. Now, my first reaction was, what is he smoking? You can call Carla Harris a lot of things, but ain't tough ain't one of them. But then I said, wait a minute. Suppose this guy's not pulling my leg. Suppose he really doesn't think that I'm tough enough for this business. And heaven forbid, suppose the rest of the organization doesn't think that I'm tough enough for this business. And as you might imagine, ladies and gentlemen, the last thing that you want to be thought of as a woman, and a woman on Wall Street, is not tough. And oh, by the way, authentically, that is who I am. So the fact that he was questioning whether or not I was tough enough was a wake-up call to me that the real Carla Harris was no longer walking into Morgan Stanley. Somewhere, I'd lost my voice. Somewhere, I'd lost my confidence. And it was creating a competitive disadvantage for me. So after I got that feedback, I said, okay, I know what I'll do. For 90 days, I decided I would walk tough, talk tough, eat tough, drink tough, use tough in my language. Because it's important that if you want to train people to think about you in a certain way, you must use consistent behavior around those three adjectives. And you must use this language in your environment, particularly when you are talking about yourself. And most of us don't get the opportunities that we want, and we never understand why we don't get those opportunities. But it's because we're being perceived in a way that is inconsistent with the way they are thinking about success for that role. And being tough, being able to deliver hard messages to clients was one of the key success factors for that seat. So after I figured that out and I started to walk tough and talk tough and eat tough and drink tough, then someone asked for me to come in and listen to a CEO's presentation. And I had a reputation of being very good at critiquing CEOs' presentations, so much so that before we would take a company on the road for a multi-billion-dollar IPO or a multi-hundred-million-dollar common stock transaction, my colleagues would often ask me to come into the room, listen to that CEO's presentation, and give that CEO some feedback, even when it was not my deal. So the next time someone asked me to do that, after I had gotten that feedback, I said, wait a minute, tell me a little bit about this CEO. Is this guy sensitive? Does he have a thin skin? I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because you know I'm tough. And I kept using that language over and over and over to describe myself. And sure enough, in about 90 days, it worked. I had a team of people coming to see me. They didn't know I was behind them, and the VP was beating up the poor associate. Do you have the backup analysis? Do you have the synergy analysis? We're going to see Carla Harris, so you know she's so tough. So they will start to think about you in that way if you have consistent behavior around those three adjectives. But ladies and gentlemen, it is imperative that you understand the adjectives that are associated with success for the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. For example, if you're new in finance, people better describe you as analytical, quantitative. If you have a marketing role, they should describe you as creative, out-of-the-box thinker. If you are in a sales role, they better describe you as commercial, relationship-oriented. And oh, by the way, every day that you choose to exercise your power to go into your seat, you should know exactly what you're playing for. It should never be a mystery to you as to what it takes to get to the next pay scale or what it takes to get to the next promotion level. And most of us are told to go into our seats, to put our head down, work really hard. They will see that you are focused, you are loyal, you are dedicated, you are good, and they reward you accordingly. And again, it doesn't work that way. Because if you are doing that in a way that's inconsistent with the way they're thinking about success, you won't maximize your success in that role. Or let me say it differently. If you offer that which is not of value, you will not be rewarded. Translation, paid. So it's important that you understand how they're thinking about success. Because if you know what you are playing for, it will keep you motivated and inspired to deliver excellence every day. But if you don't know what you're playing for, it's very easy to get distracted by what I like to call outside atmospheric disturbances. What's going on in the broader economy or even what's going on in your internal political economy. So anytime that you get a new role, you go to a new company, even if you stay within the same company and you go to a new department, or even if you're working for a new boss, always take the time to ask the question, what does success look like in this role? Never assume that you know what success looks like when you get this job. You should always take the time to have the conversation. Because remember, what got you to that seat will not be the thing that will allow you to ascend from that seat. And the conversation goes like this: Jim, what needs to happen in order for you to say I knocked the cover off the ball and the ball out of the park? If Jim says, Mary, you do the following 5 things, I will consider that an out-of-the-box performance. Now, Mary, you know exactly what you're playing for. You know how to maximize your success in that role. But more importantly, if Jim says, I don't know, Mary, you always do a good job, just do what you always do. Mary, note to self, Houston, we have a problem. Because if Jim can't tell you what success looks like, you will never maximize your success in that role. Because success is always shifting, and that will make your performance vulnerable to outside influences on Jim. So if Jim can't tell you what success looks like, you should say, Jim, you're not sure what success looks like in this role? Give me 10 minutes. Let me walk you through it. I got a pretty good idea of what I think success might look like on this project. And then you tell me what you like and what you don't like. And after those 10 minutes, Mary, now you know exactly what you're playing for. You know how to maximize your success in that seat. The second pearl that I want to leave you with comes from Strategize to Win. Your ability to get the job that you want is purely a function of understanding what the buyer is really buying. If you understand what the buyer is really buying, then you know how to tell and sell your story through that lens. So often I have found that people come into interviews, and when you ask them that opening question, oh, John, tell me about yourself, that's where most people lose the interview. Because they said, oh, should I tell them where I went to high school? Should I tell them where I'm from? Should I tell them what college I went to? Should I tell them my major? No, it's about telling your story around the things that the buyer is really buying. Ladies and gentlemen, there are very few jobs where your prerequisite experience is the dominant affirmative factor in your getting the job. It doesn't really matter whether or not you have had experience in that role. Sure, if you're going to be a neurophysicist or a brain surgeon, I would submit to you, you probably need some experience. But in most cases, it's just about understanding what the buyer is really buying and telling your story through that lens. The only job that I had on my resume when I got my first Wall Street experience was McDonald's. McDonald's. Now, you might ask, what does flipping hamburgers have to do with selling stocks and bonds? But when I sat in that interview chair, I said to the interviewer that I was made crew member of the month while I was still on probation. For those of you who don't know, McDonald's puts you on probation for 90 days before they really give you the job. I was made crew member of the month while I was still on probation. I frequently had the highest grossing register every night that I worked. I was also made a manager while I was in high school. And I also won the prize, the informal prize for suggesting sales. You know, you go into McDonald's and you say, can I get a Big Mac? They normally will say, can I get you a large order of fries? I would always say, can I get you an apple pie with that? So I won the prize for suggesting sales. What did that say to the interviewer? Wow, she has an appetite for winning. She's respected by her peers. She can penetrate client thought. What do you have to do to be successful on Wall Street? You better be respected by your clients and your peers. You better have an appetite for winning. And you need to know how to penetrate client thought. They could teach me about stocks and bonds. What the buyer was really buying were those other attributes. So the key to getting the job that you want is to understand what the key success factors are for that seat. And when you tell your story using the evidence that you are good around those things that are in that seat, even if you have never done that before. And if you've never done it before, all you need to do is say to the interviewer, give them an example of something else that you had never done before, yet you mastered. And then the interviewer will think to him or herself, wow, well, she hadn't done that before, and she mastered that. Well, maybe I can believe that she'll be able to do that here. It's about understanding what the key success factors are and telling your story through that lens. And the other question I get a lot from millennials today is, oh, but Everybody wants you to apply online. How do you differentiate yourself when everybody is putting their resume through, the online system? I don't know if they ever look at it. It's true that many companies are using the internet as their first screen. And it's also true that many people don't open their mail. But ladies and gentlemen, everybody opens a FedEx. Everybody opens a FedEx. So if you want to get noticed, write a very strong cover letter with an excellent resume that has no typos on it, by the way, and put it in the FedEx. Because what will happen is when the hiring manager gets it, they will look at it and immediately turn around to the system to see if you are in the system. And if you have already applied online and you have bothered to send them a FedEx, then guess what? There's 2 impressions that are made for that hiring manager. And at a minimum, you will get a phone interview. And if you get a phone interview, you have to remember that you want to tell your entire story in 3 minutes. 3 minutes, using the adjectives that they value for the seat that you are trying to get into. The last thing I'm going to tell you about positioning yourself for an opportunity that you want is use your network. Use your network. A company always values a resume that's been walked in by somebody who already has a W-2 with that organization. They will always value that. You're a proven entity. And so often, we don't want to ask other people for help. Oh, I can't call Shirley. I haven't talked to Shirley in over a year. She going to think I want something. You do. And that's perfectly fine. Because as long as you are willing to use your intellect and your influence on somebody else's behalf, your network will work for you. But you have to exercise your power and ask for the help. That leads me to the third and the fourth pearl that I want to leave you with. There are 2 types of currency in any environment: performance currency and relationship currency. But I want you to think to yourself that a dollar is not a dollar is not a dollar. Performance currency is worth about $1.50 very early on in your career. And performance currency is that currency that is generated by your delivering that which was asked of you and a little bit extra. Every time you go above and beyond on any kind of assignment, no matter how little or how large someone gives you, you will generate that performance currency. It works exactly like the stock market. Anytime a company says to the street that they will deliver 25 cents a share in that quarter, and that company delivers 40 cents a share, that stock goes up every single time. And so will yours. And performance currency is valuable for 3 reasons. Number 1, it will get you noticed in an environment. It will create a reputation for you. Number 2, early on in your career, it will get you paid and promoted. And number 3, it will also attract a sponsor for you. And a sponsor is the most critical relationship that you can have in your professional journey. Popular business press loves to say you need a mentor, you need a mentor, you need a mentor. And I'll tell you that a mentor is a nice to have, but a sponsor is critical to your ability to move up in any organization. And I'll tell you the difference. The mentor is the person that you can tell the good, the bad, and the ugly to. Your fears, your concerns, your mistakes, your triumphs, your strategies. I'm in this box, but I want to be in this box. Who do I need to work, and how do I get there? These are the intimate details that you can share about your career with somebody that knows you very well and somebody that you trust. The mentor needs to know you very well, and you need to be able to trust them. If they don't know you very well, they cannot be a great mentor. They can be a great advisor, but they can't be a great mentor, because a mentor's job is to give you tailored advice, tailored specifically to you and to your career aspirations. If I know Viola and I know Samantha and they both want to be managing directors and I'm a good mentor, I will give them 2 different strategies because they are 2 different women. And as a mentor, my job is to give them tailored advice that they can successfully execute. Your mentor does not need to look like you, nor do they need to be within your organization, but they must understand your context. They must understand the context that you are working in. You can survive, as I said, a very long time in your career without a mentor, But you will not ascend in any organization without a sponsor. And the sponsor is the person that you not tell the good, the bad, and the ugly to, that you must tell the good, the good, the good. Because the sponsor is the person that's carrying your paper into the room. This is the person that behind closed doors will argue passionately on your behalf as to why you should get the promotion, why you should get the next great opportunity, why you should get the great bonus. Make no mistake, this is the person that is spending their valuable political and social capital on you. So having good performance currency in any environment will attract a sponsor for you. And a sponsor is a critical relationship. So often I've seen people not move within organizations because there's nobody spending any currency on them behind closed doors. And ladies and gentlemen, all of the important decisions about your career, as I said earlier, all of the important decisions about your career will be made behind closed doors. Somebody has to spend some capital on you in order for you to move to that next level. So it's important that you understand the place that performance currency has. If someone doesn't take you under their wing in the beginning, having good performance currency will at least raise your profile so that a potential sponsor may want to seek you out. But over time, performance currency starts to experience diminishing marginal returns. That $1.50 starts to work its way back down to $1. Why? Because now you have created a new standard. Now everyone knows that you will deliver with excellence. So there's no premium associated with your deliverable. And the currency now that becomes more important for you is the relationship currency. The relationship currency. And relationship currency is worth $2.25. And it never experiences any diminishing marginal returns. Because relationship currency is the currency that is generated by the investments that you make in the people in your environment. The investments that you make in the people in your environment. None of us work in a silo. You get information from somebody, you prosecute it, and then you pass it along to someone else. We are all working in interdependent environments. So at a minimum, if you want to maximize your success in the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in, at a minimum, you must have a relationship with every seat that touches your seat. If the only person in your environment knows that you're doing a great job, that only person is your boss, then your ability to ascend in that environment is going to be vulnerable. Because that person may leave the organization, they may lose their seat at the decision-making table, or they may lose their juice. It is your responsibility to make sure that as many people as possible in your environment is aware of the outstanding contribution that you are making to that environment. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people saying, as I said to you earlier, I've traveled all over the world talking about these pros, and inevitably people will say to me, well, I don't understand why I'm not getting promoted. I don't understand why I'm not moving forward. You know, I got a good review. And I'm like, well, where are you in the organization? I'm sort of mid-level, trying to go to the next level. I said, so talk to me about your relationships. Well, I don't really play those politics. I don't really get into all those relationship things. I just keep my head down and I do my work because I'm going to let my work speak for me. But guess what? The work does not speak. You must put your work in context in the environment. And the only way that you can put your work in context is through the relationships that you have in the environment. The relationships that you have in the environment. And so often folks say to me, well, you know, I have relationships in my personal life, but it's really hard to connect with those folks who don't look like me or who I don't know very well, or we have different backgrounds, or we went to different undergraduate institutions. I don't really have anything in common with them. I don't know how to build relationships with them. The way that you build relationships in your personal life is the same way that you build relationships in your professional life. Frequency of touch. Frequency of touch. If you think of the person that you have built relationships with here as you pursued your undergraduate or your graduate degree, perhaps you stood in the registration line together. Maybe you're both econ majors and you say, I'm going to be late for class, hold me a seat. Or are you going to that party? Let's go over together. Or let's go to that football game together. Frequency of touch. And over time, you began to trust that person enough to reveal parts of who you are, and you now have a relationship with that person. It's exactly the same way in your professional life. I'm not telling you you have to reveal everything about your authenticity. You choose to share that which you are comfortable with, but you must share something. Because if people don't know you, they're not going to spend that currency on you to help elevate you in your career. I will tell you that if I know Jael and I know Jane, and I have a relationship with Jane, and it's my currency that's going to be used behind closed doors on that promotion decision, I'm going to back Jane every time. Why? Because we have a relationship, I perceive that if things go awry, I can pull her to the side and say, Jane, you got to do these 3 things and turn this bus around. I perceive that because we have a relationship, I can impact the way my coworkers are viewing her as she tries to prosecute that opportunity. Because we have a relationship, I perceive that I can give her air cover that will give her an opportunity to be successful. Ladies and gentlemen, your ability to ascend in any environment will be a function of somebody's judgment. Judgment about whether or not you're ready. Judgment about whether or not you will be successful. And judgment about whether or not the rest of the team will follow you. And judgments are directly influenced by relationships. So if you don't have the relationships, it will be very hard for someone to spend that currency on you. Just think about it. Everybody in this room has power. Everybody in this room has power. Hard-earned, personal, influential currency. Now I ask you, how many people will use that personal currency on somebody they don't know? That's normally the response that I get. It is the human response. Because anytime that we spend our personal currency on anything, we want a return. A physical return or a psychic return. But we want a return. And if you're not sure whether or not that person is going to be successful, you are not apt to spend your currency on that person. So think about it. Your inability to get promoted or to ascend will not be a function of whether or not somebody likes you. It will be a function of whether or not they know you. And if they don't know you, they won't spend that currency on you. And the last pearl that I want to leave you with today is if you consider yourself a leader in the 21st century, you must be comfortable taking risks. You must be comfortable taking risks. 15 years ago, you could create a competitive differential for yourself if you had information that other people didn't have. But today, information is a commodity. So the way that you differentiate yourself in any environment is to show that you're comfortable taking risks, because it says to the marketplace that you are comfortable with change. And change is one guarantee that you will have in your life. But interestingly enough, as I traveled around, particularly during the financial services crisis, all I heard from people was, oh, don't take any risks. Don't take any risks. Just keep your head down. Don't rock the boat. You know, 8% unemployment, now 5.3% unemployment. We're having our second reduction in force. We're having our 4th restructuring. Just keep your head down. Don't rock the boat. Well, ladies and gentlemen of Medgar Evers College, I'm here to tell you that keeping your head down will not keep you from getting shot. So as I like to say, you might as well keep your head up so you can see the bullet coming. No, I say that in jest. I say that in jest because what I'm really trying to tell you is whenever we are in tough economic environments, whenever everybody else is besieged with fear and everybody else is ducking, you have clear vision. You have clear vision to see the opportunities. That's not the time to keep your head down, because the issue with keeping your head down is that you submerge your voice, and your voice is at the heart of your power. And when you submerge your voice, you become irrelevant. And when you become irrelevant, you put a big target on the front and a big target on the back. It's during those times when you should say, oh, I know that we're trying to cut costs. I have 2 ideas about that. I know that we're trying to preserve our profitability. I have 3 thoughts about that. I know we now have 2 people doing the same job that 8 people were doing. That sounds like a process redesign. I'd like to take that on. Translation to management, wow, she's not worried about losing her job. He's not worried about the layoffs. She's trying to put points on the board. He's trying to move the ball down the field. She is a keeper. But when I ask myself why we don't take more risks, the only thing I can come up with is that we're scared. We're just scared. It's fear. And hear me clearly. Fear has no place in your success equation. Fear has no place in your success equation. Anytime you approach anything in your life, personally or professionally, from a position of fear, you will always underpenetrate that opportunity. And anytime I feel it creeping up the back of my neck, I remind myself of that old Southern saying, fear is just false evidence of things appearing real. It's really not there. Because what's the worst that can happen if you take a risk and it doesn't work out? So you fail. But guess what? Failure always brings you a gift. And that gift is called experience. Now you know how to do it better. Now you know how to do it differently. Now you know how to do it successfully. At the margin, it is always worth taking the risk. And many of us will be shown new opportunities, especially in tough economic environments. And if you're not sure whether or not you should take the risk on the new opportunity, ask yourself 3 questions. Will the new thing give you skills and experiences that you would not get if you stayed in your current seat another 12 months? Second question, will the new thing expose you to people, relationships, or networks that you would not get if you stayed in your current seat another 12 months? Third question, will the new thing create new branches on your personal decision tree of opportunity, i.e. you could go off and do some other things that you wouldn't have been able to do if you stayed in your current seat another 12 months? If the answer to all 3 of those questions is yes, you should absolutely take the risk. And as I close, I tell you that success does not just happen. You must be intentional. You must be intentional about your communications. You don't ask, you don't get. You must be intentional about your performance, and you must be intentional about your relationships. If you're going to maximize your success in the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in, you must expect and strategize to win. I thank you, and the floor is now yours.